Amazon has everything for back to school. Zebra lunchbox? Check. Cool Adidas gear like t-shirts, shoes, and backpacks? Check. Triceratops folders and pencils? Check. Laser Cat t-shirts? Check. Get your back-to-school shopping done now at Amazon.com/back-to-school and enjoy free shipping on millions of items. No need to leave your home or hassle with crowds. Amazon.com. No better place to get everything back to school from A to Z.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, happy August to you. Welcome to the 8th month of 2018. This is Molly McCord, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we talk about the astrology and energies of this week. We're going to be taking a look at August 1st through August 8th and why this month is so significant in the year. That's because there are many retrograde planets in August, a total of 7. Plus, we have one more eclipse coming up on August 11th. So it's a very interesting combination of energies where basically it's time to just throw up your hands and say, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to surrender, I'm going to let this go, I'm heading to the beach because things are happening within me, and that's where my attention needs to go. All the retrograde planets return us to ourselves. And that's a good way to think of a retrograde because you've probably heard how it's the RE words. Well, return and relax would qualify then for retrograde energies and how to make the most of them. So in this show, we're going to cover quite a bit about what's going on right now. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to the show, we do this podcast twice a week. On Monday, it is a show about healing themes and messages. And on Wednesday, the show focuses more specifically on astrology. The Monday show for this week was really about how we're moving through a big letting go phase because of that strong lunar eclipse that we just had on Friday, July 27th, and how it showed us the parts of ourselves that we need to let go of and the parts of ourselves that are attached to our ego identities, the smaller parts of ourselves. They weren't always smaller, by the way. They became smaller as our energy increased. As you raise your consciousness, as you expand your energy, there's other parts of you that seem to shrink down in comparison simply because you're outgrowing these parts of yourself. So we are significantly doing that right now. And the Monday show was all about how to honor the letting go, how to understand that it's part of a cycle. If you're feeling something big, if you've had big life changes, if things have been hard, I want to validate that. These energy cycles work with each of us differently. And so the planets and points that you have in fixed signs have been the ones that have really felt this eclipse energy over the past year and a half. So those would be planets or points in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Those are the energies that have had to deal with eclipses. In November, the North Node and the South Node change signs. The North Node moves into Cancer, the South Node moves into Capricorn, and that will be fascinating too because that means the South Node will be conjunct Pluto and conjunct Saturn over the next year and a half. So I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but we have a lot of more clearing out that's going to be happening in politics, corporations, big business, misuse of power, misuse of control, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how those things are let go of. But right now, coming back to today, August 1st, we're talking about where we're at in this year, where we're at in the energy cycle, and the best ways to make use of this energy. So currently, the sun in Leo is at 9 degrees. the moon just went into Aries the morning of August 1st here. So that's the fire. That's the initiation energy of even, okay, how am I going to start today? How am I going to get going? The moon in Aries is very action-oriented. It has movement, and it wants to begin something fresh. So you could have felt that, which actually is nice in how it coincides with August 1st, how we start the month with this sense of, okay, things are changing, things are happening, but come back to center. Come back to who I am right now. What can I do today to take care of myself? And that's one gift of the moon in Aries. Now, we do have our friend Mercury in retrograde, and Mercury is going to stay in retrograde here. It just started last week. So Mercury is going to be in retrograde until August 19th, where it goes back to 11 degrees. So we're in this slowing down phase in the Mercury area of your life, and that is specifically at 21 degrees of Leo. Wherever 23 degrees to 11 degrees of Leo shows up in your chart is where we need to sit with some things. And Mercury in Leo doesn't want to change. It has a strong will and determination. It's a fixed energy that says, this is what I want. And it's a part of ourselves that it's just good to pause. And what I mean by that is give yourself time and space to sit with things and to not rush forward. Projects, emails, anything coming up in conversations, invitations you're asked, something new that's come forward. Mercury retrograde isn't when we want to start something new unless we can have the expectation that we'll be reworking it or revisiting it again. Instead, Mercury retrograde is this beautiful opportunity to just take a dang break and to not overwork our minds, to not feel like we always have to figure it out right now. And we can get into that cycle. That's just how we live. And depending on your natal Mercury, well, that's how you process information. That's how you think, how you communicate, the words you choose. And in Leo, we need to just take a pause. And maybe you don't want to change anything, but it's not a good time to rush it either. And perhaps there are some things you do want to tweak, rework, revisit, sit with. But those are the gifts of Mercury retrograde. Now, we know how Mercury retrograde often shows up through technology, communication, travel issues. It's basically about how we go about our daily lives and where we connect with other people and how we communicate. So that's why your phone might need an upgrade. It's why something with your car can show up. Mercury is all about movement, and so how we move through life comes up, and we look at it as what can we adjust, what can be changed, where do we need to slow down, and be more intentional. So there's always gifts in everything when we know how to consciously work with the energy. Our Lady Venus, she is at 24 degrees of Virgo now. And a few weeks ago, I shared with you how I think of the Venus in Virgo archetype as a Martha Stewart of how can I organize or improve? How can I make something better? What are the details that count? What are the small particulars that matter? Venus in Virgo is a wonderful problem solver. She finds the solutions. And because it's the feminine energy, it could be a female who comes forward with those solutions and those ideas of what to do, how to solve it. It could even be your own feminine energy that feels like I just need to focus on something small right now. Just give me one small project to do, and I'll take care of that. And then I'll move on to the next small project, and I'll do that. Venus in Virgo is a way to improve in your life, and it can be yourself. Virgo is actually associated with beauty and self-care. And so do you need a new haircut? Do you need to get your nails done? Do you need a pedicure? Do you need something to improve in how you feel about yourself? And that's the Venus energy, is how we take care of ourselves, how we give back to ourselves. So it's actually a beautiful time for beautification and looking at what you want to change about your body. Do you need to make some new nutritional choices, new food or health decisions? Because Virgo is the body and how we care for the body, how we take responsibility for it on a daily basis. So as Venus continues moving through Virgo, she shows us, well, first she shows us what's wrong, because she can be critical, and in Venus she wants to be nice about it. Whereas in Mercury and Virgo can be a little bit more nitpicky. But Venus in Virgo, she'll like pull you aside and say, by the way, you might want to take a look at your lipstick. It's on your teeth. Venus and Virgo make sure we don't embarrass ourselves. The other thing about Venus and Virgo is that it's really discerning, and it is someone who typically has well thought out recommendations. I was thinking about this last week because I have a friend who always knows the best places to eat, the best restaurants, and she has Virgo energy, and she's discerning about where she goes, because there's some restaurants that are, a B minus, but she knows the A plus spaces, and she knows this is where the best food is. They have wonderful plates. They have lovely linens, because Virgo appreciates all these details, especially in food, when it's like the high quality, really good food. Venus and Virgo. So this is the energy that'll show you the best place to go, and that is a lovely gift of her placement in this astrological sign. Now she is going to move into Libra August 7th, so next week, and Venus loves Libra. I mean, that's just where she can shine, where she can interact with people. She socializes. She has good friends that she wants to hang out with. She likes to look good. She likes to wear the latest fashions in Libra. She's very stylish. She's very beautiful and together, and she knows how to make an impression. So we're going to move into that energy, and that shifts the feminine energy because, again, Venus in Virgo keeps things small, whereas Venus in Libra is like, I want to connect with people. So she steps out of where she's been at the office, at the yoga studio, at the juicing counter. She steps away from that, and she begins interacting with other people, and it makes relationships easier. So this will be a nice energy. Again, that's August 7th. Venus goes into Libra, and she is going to make a square. She's going to be squaring Saturn next Friday the 10th. So that's just a heads up about money issues. August 10th, when Venus squares Saturn. But she's also going to she's going to be trining Mars. Well, that's great. Let's go out on a date. Let's socialize. That could be, you could meet somebody. Those of you who know your chart, this is happening at one degree of Libra and 1 degree of Aquarius. Great time to socialize, to hang out with friends, to meet friends of friends. And again, that is on Wednesday, August 8th. And we'll just call it August 7th and August 8th are actually 2 good relationship days, when Venus and Mars make a trine and they connect and they just flow. And that's when you could just find someone that you connect with, or you have a good conversation with, or you're like, it's flowing. So it's good to find those days when they show up. So speaking of Mars, he's important this week because he is still in the early degrees of Aquarius moving backwards, and he is still keeping the eclipse energy alive. The eclipse on Friday is going to keep popping up until October. And that's when it's going to keep coming up strongly because of Mars and Uranus. They're still in conversation, and they're still going to be activating the nodes, the north node and the south node. So this eclipse energy, it's going to be potent for another, let's call it 2 months. Now, eclipse energies last longer than that. They initiate a cycle that lasts for years. And so this one is actually still front and center for a few months. And then it will still through a full cycle beyond this year. So that's important to understand, is that we put a lot of energy and emphasis on the day of an eclipse, but it's just that initiation of the energies. And yes, things can happen, things develop, and then the energy is still here, okay? It's like it just arrived. It's just coming in the door, and it's making itself at home. So it's still quite active right now, as Mars is at 2 degrees of Aquarius and squaring Uranus at 2 degrees of Taurus. And these two are quite combustible, and they are erratic. And Mars is anger, fire, explosions, outbursts, frustration when it's in a square to a planet. Because typically Mars is how you want to get something out. Okay? It's the energy that moves out of you. It's your desires. It's how you go for what you want. It's how you take action. It's how you move. Okay? It's very much about what goes out of you. Venus, on the other hand, is what comes in to you. What comes in to you. So Mars is what goes out of you. And you're saying, I want this. And then this Uranus energy is squaring Mars, and that puts on the brakes. And that's when you get a frustration where you're saying, I want this. And Uranus is the bigger energy here. And Uranus is saying, you have to go slow, and you have to wait for it. And you can't have it right now. And it's kind of like a neener, like the bully who's holding something above your head and you can't quite grab it. And Mars is the kid who's trying to grab that toy or grab that ball. Kind of that energy of, I want this, and you can't get it, and you can't reach it, and it's frustrating. Now, this is especially strong for you if you have any planets or points at 1, 2, or 3 degrees of the fixed signs. So again, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Those are, again, the trigger points. So you can see if you have fixed signs, you're really working with a lot, because the eclipses are working with you, and then, Mars and Uranus are working with these energies too. So it's shaking things up. It's shaking where we've been stagnant or stuck. It's checking in with our personal sense of power and control, even when there's chaos, even when we can't have something yet, even when we're angry and we're frustrated. And Mars squaring Uranus is like a fast outburst. It's that person who cuts you off in traffic and you just want to slam on your horn, or you have this like crazy reaction, and then a minute or so later you're like, whoa, who was I? That was crazy. I was completely reactionary, because this energy takes you out of common sense. It isn't common sense at all. It's just a outburst. It's very impulsive. So you can see it as the fires that are burning wildly in California. There's I'm trying to think of other examples right now in the real world, but I haven't been watching the news enough to give you enough examples. But it's that kind of energy. And it's just really strong right now, and we all have to watch ourselves, and we all have to just slow it down. And it's something that we work with consciously, and that's how we stay in control of ourselves. And you can even give yourselves some points where you're like, okay, someone cut me off in traffic, and I didn't have a crazy maniac reaction, and I'm going to give myself some points for that, because it turns things up a notch. It really does. This is not comfortable energy. And it's not over. And it's not over because of how Mars is in retrograde until the end of this month, August 26th, at 28 degrees of Capricorn, and then moves forward again, which is what Mars wants to do. Mars wants to move forward. And then he's going to make another square to Uranus at 1 degree. So right now it's at 2 degrees. They're going to meet again at 1 degree. And that will be happening for a few days, the middle of September. September 16th through the 19th. And that's because of how slow Mars is moving at that time. So just keep an eye on your own frustrations, on how to be softer, kinder, slower right now, even though you're not going to feel that way. If you do have anger, work it out, get it out. No need to keep it in, but do it consciously, do it mindfully. Do it through physical exercise. Do it through anything physical. That's really where the Mars energy feels good. But it's doing it in a way where it's within your power and your choice, and it's not something that's just reactionary. Uranus is important right now because of how the energies of Uranus in Taurus are just getting underway. And it's going to be even stronger next year. Next spring especially. Now, I did a separate show for you on the Uranus energies as Uranus moves back and forth between these first 2 degrees of Taurus and then back into Aries at 28 degrees. And then it's going to station direct and move back into Taurus in 2019. So what it means is that this year, 2018, we're just getting a sample of Uranus and Taurus energies. And this is about the financial systems, the banking structure, anything with money, because that's Taurus. It's what you value, what you buy, the money you have, on the money you make, how you make money. And Uranus is about the collective. And so it is about financial systems, banking structures, and how that's all going to be changing. Now think about how money is changing these days, how, at least here in America, we're always using debit cards. Everything is an electronic transaction. Cash is not the mode of payment. I mean, you can have cash and still pay with it, but most people use a card. And think about how there's been a rise in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and those are all connected with electronics, which is Uranus. So as Uranus comes back into Taurus in 2019, more of these systems are going to be shaken up. We see how the global economy is changing with the current tariff wars, at least between the United States and China and the United States and European countries. And the interesting thing about this is that it could get worse next year because, again, this is just a sample of the energies to come. And also right now, the Uranus and Taurus energy, one thing it has going for it is that it's being trined by Saturn in Capricorn, which is keeping things steady. Because Saturn in Capricorn requires responsibility, maturity, discipline. It like holds the reins. It's like I'm going to keep you to this. I'm going to keep some things a little bit more stable right now. So the Saturn in Capricorn trine is actually, if you can believe it, supporting Uranus and Taurus right now, okay? And that's not going to be the case next year. Next year is going to be more erratic with financial systems, with banking, with money, with how we make money. That can be big windfalls, by the way. That can be big things developing. That could be a whole new source of income. It opens things up. It doesn't just take it all down. It takes out what has served its purpose, but it opens up new opportunities as well. So I'm not all about fear telling you something's going to collapse, but something's going to change. And that's really what we're moving into when Uranus comes back into Taurus in 2019. So right now, in August 2018, this energy is actually quite strong because Uranus in Taurus is slowing down to station retrograde on August 8th. Can you believe that I just got cut off while I was talking about Uranus and electronics and its Mercury retrograde? So I'm back. Sorry for the intermission. As I was saying, Uranus and Taurus is now going to turn back into Aries, where you look at what needs to be finished, where you look at the parts of you that are truly you. And it's where we go back to collect more courage, more confidence, more of that sense of self, like this is who I am now. And then when Uranus moves back into Taurus, it's helping you be in alignment with how you want to make money, what is true for you, what your values are, the possessions you want in your world, in your life, all of that. And that's when things get shaken up even more. So one thing to keep in mind is that if there's changes to electronics, if there's changes to the financial systems, again, going back to how much financial information is online and how much is already done through electronics, think about credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all of that could be affected by Uranus and Taurus because it's about the money. One thing to keep in mind is that it never hurts to have cash on hand. Just in general, just like your own safekeeping, cash is king always, because we're so dependent on everything with this with our electric grid, right? We need these systems to work. You go to the gas station, how do you pay? You go to buy groceries, how do you pay? Look at how you use money and what you need in order to not be codependent or reliant upon these bigger systems. Just having cash could give you peace of mind. It always helps. So that's something to be aware of in 2019 especially. But we're going to be changing money and how we use money and what it means, how we bring money in. All of that is happening, and I'm curious to see what does happen even in the next few months as Uranus goes retrograde here in Taurus. Now, one way that we take astrology and we make it more applicable in our lives, goals of the planets and the energies. So right now, as I've said, Uranus is in the early degrees of Taurus. So one thing we can do is see, well, what was the last planet, outer planet, that was in Taurus? Because it would have been the last planet that was in this same part of your astrology chart. Okay, so what was the last outer planet that was at 0 to 2 degrees of Taurus? And I know you probably don't know that, but don't worry, I do, because I want to give you great customer service here. And so the last planet was Saturn, was at 0 to 2 degrees of Taurus during 1998 and 1999. So back then, 20 years ago, I can't believe it's 20 years ago, 20 years ago, when Saturn was at the same part in your chart, you were getting serious about something. You were making a commitment. You were taking on responsibility in this area of your chart. You were looking at your money responsibilities. I remember this in my chart because I remember I wanted to get rid of a credit card, and I needed to pay off a credit card bill just to be done with it. And I remember it was like I worked extra hard to make more money to pay off a credit card bill. That was my Saturn in Taurus. So this is the energy that's being revisited here. 1998 and 1999, Saturn in Taurus was making money and financial issues bigger in your world. Now, Uranus is coming through to set you free of something that perhaps is done or perhaps is an old way of doing something. Because Uranus is all about independence and opening us up to a different way of seeing it and a different way of understanding how something can happen. So with the Saturn energy, we worked hard, we put in the time, we had to be disciplined and responsible, and all these Saturn energies in order to make the money. Now Uranus is coming through and saying, okay, whatever you learned from that period of time, 1998 and 1999, about your finances, now we're going to rework it and elevate it. And what do you need now based on the new resources that we have? Because 20 years ago, it really wasn't possible to do as many things online. The Internet, the World Wide Web, it wasn't what it is today, obviously. So now we have more resources. This is all Uranus stuff. It's opened it up. So now we're opened up, and we have new opportunities. So Uranus is stirring up these new opportunities. But remember, there's that Mars square, and the Mars square says, well, I want it now. But you're meant to be putting in energy to build it because Saturn in Capricorn is trining Uranus. So Saturn in Capricorn is trining Uranus, saying if you put in the time, if you put in the structures, if you know what you want and you have the determination and the ambition to go for it, you will have this new way to make money, to connect with the resources you need. It's a new foundational energy. I'm focusing on money because it's an easy example here, but it will depend on your chart. It will depend on your chart. So something's opening up for all of us in the world of finances, of how you value yourself, of how you see your gifts, of how you recognize even what you can do and what's possible. And then you add into that the North Node. And the North Node is in Leo, right, as it's been. And the North Node is squaring Uranus, and it's interesting how it's such a push right now to trust what's new, to follow what's in your heart, to follow where perhaps you didn't see a path. It could open up now. It could be clearer now. To trust that Leo part of you that says, I want this. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this. There's new energies coming in and coming through. We are receiving them on multiple levels of our being. And throughout August, do what you can to relax. Do what you can to retreat. Because 7 planets in retrograde is a clear message that you don't have to force anything. Now, it's common for planets to be in retrograde. For example, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, the outer planets, are commonly in retrograde for half of the year. Every year, they're in retrograde. So not too special, not too different. What is unique, however, is how the station retrogrades have all happened within the same amount of time, within a few months. And then add to that a Mercury retrograde and a Mars retrograde. and then it just all piles on to being a lot of internal energies in you that are shifting. And I see it as the DNA at a cellular level is moving. It's interesting how I feel the DNA strands are actually speeding up. And so you could feel it pulsing through you. You could feel it moving through you in a different way. And it feels like that's part of this reprogramming and the rewiring. On Monday's show, I talked about reprogramming and how that's really a big theme right now, and that it's necessary for this stage of ascension and this stage of what the earth requires. Keep in mind that we're always in partnership with Gaia, with the earth. We support Gaia, and Gaia supports us. And sometimes we humans, we're not so good in our relationship with the earth, right? Because of the choices we make or how resources are not valued or used responsibly. And that's being reworked. That's being reworked with Uranus and Taurus. So there is our relationship with the planet that's bigger than ever. And some people know that that's part of their own mission work, is how they represent Gaia and the Earth's energies to humanity through various organizations, through different, responsibilities, through different causes, levels of awareness, and yet all of us are in relationship with the Earth. I found it fascinating that I believe it was last week, scientists discovered that at the core, one of the Earth's core layers were billions of diamonds, diamond energy. And that makes sense when you think about all the pressure that the Earth has been under. But I thought it was a beautiful way to look at what is happening within Gaia, within the experience of the Earth, of this planet. It just feels, gorgeous. And I felt like it adds strength to the planet energetically because of how strong diamonds are, right? And so you think about billions of diamonds at the core of the planet and the strength there, the clarity, just the energy. If we just tap into that for a minute, I feel like it's a wonderful vibration to tap into, to know that for everything the planet has been through and experienced, there are diamonds at its core, and that it's a purity, it's a clarity there. And I felt like that was a beautiful, timely message of the fact that there are energies shifting here that are supporting us. It's like diamonds on the soles of her shoes. I love that song. And that's kind of this reminder of, okay, we're here on this precious place in the galaxy, and we are supported by diamonds, and how are we going to continue to honor ourselves on this journey and honor the Earth as a companion, and how that relationship is always going to be important. This week, we're going to see the moon move into Taurus, so it's going to make a conjunction to Uranus, and it's going to set off or trigger that lunar eclipse point. Let's see, that will be, let me give you a date on that here. I'm looking at my ephemeris. And it will be specifically on Saturday the 4th. So the moon moving over the eclipse points can trigger emotions and home and some other things coming up under the surface that we didn't see before that comes out. Please stay aware of yourself during that time because, again, it sets off that square with Mars as well. So there's just some crunchy energy this week. It really is a time of things moving through. And if you can find the steadiness within yourself and feel that, and even go to the solar plexus, because that is where the Leo energy resides, the sun in Leo. You know, the sun is never retrograde. The sun always moves forward, same with the moon. And they are the energies that are meant to keep us in place, if you will, to keep us feeling strong. And the sun in Leo is very much about the solar plexus energy, that yellow chakra, that sense of self and strength and power and feeling confident in self. And the more that you can just tap into that for yourself, it'll help guide you forward. And just a reminder that you have what you need right now. You have what you need within you, and that will help take it one day at a time. If you feel that anger or you have a reaction, you feel something gets triggered, it is a triggering time right now. And so again, the more you can retreat from the world, it's just could be the best thing to do. Because of how we need that time to relax, return, retreat to ourselves. Chiron is also in retrograde at 2 degrees of Aries. There's so many planets in the early degrees right now. Chiron is at 2 degrees of Aries, still squaring Saturn at 3 degrees of Capricorn. They're both in retrograde, so they're both in a locked position, moving backwards. This energy is so clearly shown through that issue of the families that were separated at the border and the children that were taken from their parents. This is that wound where they grow up not knowing who they truly are, not knowing their family, not knowing their parents because of the officials who separated them, the policies that tore them away. That's really what this Chiron in Aries squaring Saturn in Capricorn is. So that is a wound that will be worked through collectively as well as individually. So a lot of planets in the early degrees here, and the North Node and South Node are at 5 degrees, and they're moving towards 4 degrees. So again, there's just a lot of early degree energies coming up in our charts, in the world right now, and it's kind of this return to what really matters. The early degrees of a chart of any sign are usually a fresh initiation into an energy. So there's a lot of planets that are figuring things out in these new astrological signs, and they're figuring out what is my intention. What is my motivation? What is my purpose in this new energy? So that's what you could be feeling too, especially during August. You have the questions, and maybe the answers aren't clear yet, but they will be. So the more you can sit with them, the more you can relax, retreat, and return to yourself, it's going to be strengthening, and it's going to give you more trust in the bigger cycle of energies that we're moving through. We don't have all the information yet about these next steps. You have parts of it. You have some clarity. You have some understanding of what's important, but more is going to come in September and October as more planets station direct, and you have this new resurgence of what is true for you right now. So that feels good for today's show. Thank you so much for joining me. My website is consciouscoolchic.com. If you are a healer, a guide, an expert, a spiritual teacher of some sort, I have more business resources for you at mollymccord.online. And it's information specifically for awake and conscious business development. So I hope that supports you. In the meantime, my friends, I'll see you back here next Monday for our next healing show. And I wish you many blessings in the week ahead. Please know that everything is always in divine and perfect order, and that will also help support you each step of the way. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hardy's Happy Hour isn't your average happy hour. From 2 to 5 p.m., double sliders are only $1.25. Call it a charbroiled hour, a double beef hour, a whole lot of melty cheese hour. Call it what you want. Happy Hour at Hardy's is a good call. Offer for a limited time and only between 2 and 5 p.m. Price and participation may vary. Tax not included.
Amazon has everything for back to school. Zebra lunchbox? Check. Cool Adidas gear like t-shirts, shoes, and backpacks? Check. Triceratops folders and pencils? Check. Laser Cat t-shirts? Check. Get your back to school shopping done now at amazon.com/back-to-school and enjoy free shipping on millions of items. No need to leave your home or hassle with crowds. Amazon.com. No better place to get everything back to school from A to Z.